stylings, not necessarily in song form. We're pleased to be joined again by Jeffrey Tucker, founder and president of the Brownstone Institute and author of the book Liberty or Lockdown. Jeffrey Tucker, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Man, my pleasure. Wait, was that clip you played was real? That wasn't the Babylon Bee?
No, it's real.
That was really real?
That's real.
Did he
It's
get...
Francis Collins.
Oh, my gosh.
That was Francis Collins.
Francis Collins.
Yeah. And he's I guess, a paradigmatic case of one of these lockdown guys who is sort of sneaking away from public life, pretending like he didn't do anything and just...
Right, turning to his music. Yes, right. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It really is. Like, because I know you wrote this piece, like, who's going to be held accountable for all this?
Yeah.
Francis Collins wants you to remember him for his music.
Right. Yeah, it's so disturbing, that we could have had, a fire set to civilization like this. And we don't have anybody we can really sort of say, oh, look, you did it. Or nobody's willing to take responsibility. I made the decision. It's all these vague committees and bureaucracies and best practices and precedents and, germ games and vague academics. And people, were glad to say, well, I really didn't approve of the way this happened. I didn't like the way this came down. That was a true mistake. They really messed that one up. You can't find anybody out there willing to say, look, I love these policies and I think they were really good. And if you don't like them, blame me. Right? You just don't hear anybody saying that.
It's been this dynamic since the beginning, right? The politicians say I'm following the science and data, and the medical experts say I'm just providing advice and counsel to the politicians. So nobody has to be held accountable for anything that goes wrong.
I'm just a scientist. I'm not into politics. Actually, Fauci said this a number of times. He said, "Well, I'm just here promoting public health. I'm not here to tell the politicians what to do."
And he's made millions off of this pandemic. So have politicians. If you look at Chris Cuomo and everybody. But here in Illinois today, I don't know if you know this, we're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the first COVID vaccination in Illinois. I mean, they'll do anything to have a press conference to keep this going and to keep, their faces on TV screens here in Chicago.
I'm truly worried about the future of vaccinations. I mean, here you had a great, great, great achievement of public health, the number one achievement of public health in the last century, if not of all time. And it's now just all mired in this mucky thing with, excessive profitability on the part of the farm companies, the lack of therapeutics. There's a discrediting of vaccinations that is taking place. That cannot be good in the long run. It almost seems like a big plot to promote the anti-vax movement or something.
Yeah. Also, too, what about therapeutics? We're talking about therapeutics again now. It's been a while, but we're talking about them now because Pfizer's Paxlovid, the results 90% effective at reducing the risk of hospitalization and death in high-risk individuals that were tested. And so if that's the case, and then we don't have to worry about infection anymore, you just take this pill and others, but this is the one that the public health establishment might actually sign on to. Then isn't it over?
I don't understand why it's not over. It's when that pill was announced, I thought, well, that's good. Of course, am I right that it's going to be a patented proprietary product and therefore overpriced? I mean, right. I don't know that, but whereas there's going to be plenty of over-the-counter solutions to coronaviruses, that's sort of what you do with viruses. You try to, that's what you do with sickness.
Right. But the difference is that those others were either dismissed or they're not talked about by the people that matter. Yeah. This one, because maybe it's coming from Pfizer, may matter.
I think that's probably right. And the day of the announcement, Moderna stock collapsed, but for some reason, I think all rationality has been lost here. You'd think that with a good therapeutic, and apparently this is one of them, that the enthusiasm of vaccine mandates and boosters and boosting every 5-year-old or whatever, would diminish. But for some reason, all these things seem to be happening at once, and which makes you wonder, what is the end game here? Is it all just about bio passports and social credit, eventually, and surveillance, does bio pass the surveillance state? I don't know. That's a lot of people say that. I don't know. All I know is that nothing's made sense to me for nearly 2 years now, and I spent all my time trying to make sense of it, but it's getting increasingly difficult.
And the FDA, they approved boosters for minors, but they didn't test boosters on minors. And we had a doctor on who said you have a 1 in 1 million chance in that age group of dying from COVID, but 1 in a 2,340 chance of getting myocarditis after another booster.
Right.
So why?
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of studies on this, but your risk of adverse effects is higher than your risk from COVID. And I think this is well known, but I think saying that, on Twitter now gets your account taken down. And I saw that Peter McCullough's interview with Joe Rogan, which was very interesting. I listened to maybe 30 minutes of 3 hours, but that guy is so articulate and a real doctor who's, really addressed COVID since the beginning. But his 3-hour-long interview with Rogan was taken down by YouTube. Just taken down.
Mm-hmm. Well, that might go to the question about whether this is sort of a techno-authoritarian state in the making in the West.
Well, and the other thing is, I don't know if you looked at YouTube's new terms of service, but I mean, everything we're saying right now on the air would be banned. And YouTube is not just a video service. That's Google's company, and Google is the number one website in the world, hosting 90% of the web searches. YouTube is the second most important website in the world, hosting about 80% of all videos. So it really matters when you have a ruling class outsourcing its censorship to these companies, and it really affects the public mind, what people think. And what I'm seeing here is quite dark. These companies imagine that they can just blot out the truth and control people through their terms of service, and the dissidents, are always going to remain such a tiny minority that we're not going to make any real impact on the trajectory of public life, or so they believe. Yeah. I don't think that that's true. I think we've got a real chance here, a fighting chance for regaining our liberties and putting our civilization back together again. I believe that it can be done because of passion and the courage of people who have really, decided that they're not going to sit by and watch their lives ruined and wrecked by the likes of the New York Times and Google and Big Pharma. And I'm seeing I'm sure you are too, the growth of a real, sort of a resistance, and at least people willing to step up and take risks and say no to this.
Well,
and that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I mean, look, against the backdrop of the virus appearing to get weaker as it mutates with like Omicron, you have some of these more stringent policies being imposed, including camps in Australia and prison sentences in Austria. So it's going to take some real passion and some real organized dissidents, I think, to reverse this trend.
Yeah. You kind of say, I know it's terrible in Australia and it's terrible all over the flipping world, but it's bad enough in New York.
Yeah, well, right.
I mean, I know people are suffering all over the world, and this sounds like a petty problem, but I'm headed to New York tomorrow. I wonder if there's a really nice old family there. It's lived in a fancy house on the Upper East Side for decades. Like a science sort of level family. Wealthy, well-to-do, top league, society elite in New York. They don't want the vaccination, so they're refusing it. Also, they're morally scrupulous enough to not take it, unlike half the other people in New York, right? So, I don't know if you know that, but half.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to have a nice dinner with them tomorrow night because I'm speaking at the Metropolitan Club or something like that. They are not even allowed into any restaurant.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to have to get Chinese takeout and invite them to my hotel room.
It's so ridiculous.
Are you sure you're going to be able to? You should be able to get into the venue for your speech.
Oh, you asked about me in particular?
Yeah. Are you going to be able to get into the venue where you're speaking? Yeah.
Well, let's just say I have
You have some connections, right? But it's all like, it's all very on the hush hush. I'm breaking into a place where I've been invited to speak.
Well, and the fact that I can't just have a dinner. I can't get to New York. I can't even go to dinner with my friends. Everything's become crazy, and we're putting up with this crap. I don't know. Jordan Peterson said something about this. They push you a little further, push you a little bit further, and push you a little bit further, and you keep putting up with it. And after a while, it really does become the new normal. I think a lot of people in New York are kind of waiting for the next mayor to say, "Oh, this is dumb. Let's go back to the way it was." I'm not sure that's going to happen, though. I'm just not sure about that. I hope it does. It's outrageous how our lives become. And
yeah.
I'm glad about DeSantis. God bless that man in Florida, right? I mean, every time he speaks, he's all about freedom and liberties and stuff. That's nice. Unlike Biden. Biden was just yesterday making fun of the idea of freedom. He said, "Don't tell me about your freedom. Tell me about your patriotism."
Right.
That's what he said yesterday.
Right.
So I'm glad for Florida, but here's the thing. I'm thrilled for Florida. It's just great, but it's the whole of civilization is sweeping towards the totalitarianism. You'll be safer in Florida, but you're not going to be finally safe.
Mm-hmm.
We all use the same dollar. That's being destroyed. We've got a White House now that's telling everybody that inflation is caused by greed. That happened yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have a clue. Productivity is collapsing. I was looking at the data on labor productivity this morning, which is a funny little figure, but it's just how much productivity traces each individual labor. And what you see is a real collapse. I mean, it's looking dangerous. Investment is vanishing. It's decoupled from the stock market. So we've got serious economic troubles coming, and Floridians are not going to be spared this. So it's going to affect everybody. It's in everybody's interest, like right now, to do whatever you can to throw yourself into battle against what's happened to us over the last 2 years. Sorry for getting passionate.
No, that's good. That's good. End with a clarion call. Perfect. Jeffrey Tucker, founder and president of the Brownstone Institute, author of the book Liberty or Lockdown. Jeffrey, enjoy New York, and thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Fun with your takeout Chinese. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Jobs in engineering are available now. Automated Systems, Inc., a dynamic project-oriented consulting company, is currently hiring technical professionals for mission-critical roles in support of life-saving therapies for the pharmaceutical, biotech, and medical device industries. Open positions for the following roles are wanted now: validation engineers, controls engineers, quality assurance professionals, technical writers, project managers, and process engineers. Ready to apply your knowledge and expertise? Consider these